Good afternoon, everybody. Keith Engle here with TGI Sports Talk. Major League Baseball update. Busy week. We had players put on waivers, some surprising names put on waivers, I guess. The Angels pretty much put their whole team on waivers. Only a handful of players actually claimed. But the Yankees had put Harrison Bader on waivers. Luis Giolito claimed by the Guardians, Bader by the Reds. Guardians made about 4 or 5 of the 6 claims. So interesting stuff going on. We want to welcome everybody who's watching us today on TGI Sports Talk, on Let's Talk Sports, Northeast Streaming Sports. You can always catch us later on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Please like and share the show. Guys, every show you tune into, I appreciate so much. Like it and share it. Put it on your page. Invite your friends to become part of the madcap nonsense we have going on this show and all my other shows. Quick note, I want to say, give a shout out to our Let's Talk Sports, Dan Harris. As you know, I do some shows with Dan live, New York, Let's Talk New York Sports and things like that. And Dan's not doing very well, guys. And I asked if it was okay to kind of share his situation. Now you haven't seen him. We haven't done our show in a while. And, all I would ask, and I will ask probably each one, every one of my shows, is that you send some positive energy, some good thoughts. If you want to do that, say a little prayer for Dan as he can use it. He's a stand-up guy, man, and he is he's a strong individual. And I wish him well. He's one of the best people that I've met since I started doing this nearly 3.5 years ago. I've enjoyed it so much, and getting together with Dan was one of the treats of this. He's over in the UK, and as he continues to struggle, he could use some good thoughts, and I hope you guys will join me in doing that. So anyway, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today. We'll get into the standings. We'll look at as I said, the waiver activity. Not a lot of it, but it's interesting that some things did go on. We'll talk about the Yankees and what they're in Mets, maybe what we're going to do. But a lot of prospects coming up today for both. The Martian will be in town. Jason Dominguez will get called up, 20 years old. Top Yankee farmhand. We'll see how it goes. A little different, by the way. Waivers today as compared to years ago. Used to be you could expand your roster on September 1st. The players were not eligible for the postseason, but you could expand your roster to 40 people. And one of the reasons I think it stopped was, well, there's a couple of reasons. Teams would have a great advantage. I mean, you might see 12 pitchers in a game, and some of the September games were ridiculous. You could have extra pinch runners and all kinds of advantages that way. But I think Major League Baseball was also trying to cut into the service time that these guys who were accumulating. So that's one of the reasons, probably the major reason it was cut back. I think they could have 28 through the month of September. Now they can rotate them in and out. You can change your active roster daily as long as they're on the 40-man. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm interested in seeing some of these kids play. Maybe we can see some interesting baseball for a change. The Yankees did play a little better this week. Taking 2 out of 3, I think, for the Tigers. Tough loss yesterday on an air. Look at some of the scores from yesterday. Volpe does become the first Yankee to go 20 homers, 20 stolen bases. Got an outside shot at 25-25, which I think would be the first rookie to do it. When I say first rookie to do 20-20, sorry, not the first Yankee. Going to be one of the front runners for the rookie of the year. He still has some things to shore up in his game. We got to make more contact. I can't have a shortstop hitting 20 home runs and striking out 200 times a year. Not okay. So anyway, it was a very short schedule yesterday. The Yankees lost to the Tigers, as we said, at a throwing error by Gleyber Torres. The Marlins win over the Nationals, get back to 500. Jazz Chisholm hits a 3-run home run in this game. The Giants 7-2, trying to get themselves jump started in that National League wild card race. They beat the Padres. Padres, man, what a wasted season, right? And then the Braves and the Dodgers in an interesting series. This will be an interesting series all weekend. Is this an all weekend series? I would think that it is. Let me just check the schedule here quick. I gotta believe, yeah, this is an all weekend. Atlanta and Los Angeles, two best teams in the National League, two best teams in baseball, for that matter. At least for my money. Let's see, does it say that record wise or doesn't it? 83. I think maybe the Dodgers are tied with the Orioles. It's interesting races. We're going to get into them all. Very interesting races, guys. The waiver wire, as I said, a lot of guys put out. I was trying to find out just a minute ago. Players. Hold on. What? Let's see if I can find this. What? MLB players were placed. If I could spell it, would be easier. On waivers 2023. I know the players that have been claimed. I'm just looking for some of the guys that, man, too hard. I guess there's probably too many. Guess all we're going to get is who was claimed. Let's go through that real quick. So players that were, and again, these guys who were claimed on waivers are eligible for the playoffs, but the Guardians were the most active team. So I don't know, I don't think the Guardians are making the playoffs. So, but they do get a couple of useful players. If I can find my damn list here. I had it. Oh, why I don't have it in front of me now. There we go. So anyway, you had 6 players claimed only. See a lot of guys claimed. And by the way, these are irrevocable waivers. There's 2 different kinds. You can put guy on irrevocable waivers where if somebody claims him, he's gone. Interesting enough, Harrison Bader played all during the time he was on the waiver wire. A couple games, I want to say. That used to not happen either. And then there's revocable waivers, which means you could put him on. If somebody does claim him, then you can try to work out a trade, or you can pull him back, or you can let him go. It's up to you. So anyway, we saw a number of notable players change hands, and the Guardians were the most active. The Guardians claimed Lucas Giolito, who, as you know, the Angels were all in at the trade deadline, foolishly trying to woo Ohtani to stay. But they went for Giolito. Also, they brought in Rolando Lopez, who was also put on waivers and claimed by the Guardians. Sorry. I just don't understand. When I'm marked out of office, why people are saying, "Are you in the office?" God. Oh, Lord. I ain't going to answer. So anyway, they went all in. 2 of the guys that they got from the White Sox, they let go. Giolito did not pitch well. He struggled in his 6 starts with the Angels, almost a 7 ERA. Helped them go right into the tank that they went into pretty much immediately after the trade deadline. So he's claimed by the Guardians. Now he's eligible for the postseason should the Guardians make the postseason. But is that even a realistic possibility? Well, they're 5 games behind the Twins, so they're not done. But, probably nothing to be lost because he's a free agent after the season. So I guess when you think about it, he's not really, they're not really risking anything. Ronaldo Lopez had pitched pretty good since he became a reliever. He had a 13-game stint, struck out 19 in those 13 games in 13 innings. He'll join a ton of relievers in that Cleveland bullpen. Matt Moore, he rejuvenated his career last year. He's been around a while, 34 years old. Rejuvenated his career last year with the Rangers. He signed a 1-year deal with the Angels last offseason. He pitched pretty well, 2.66 with 49 strikeouts over 44 innings. He also was claimed by the Guardians. Left-hander out of that bullpen. So they strengthened their starting staff. They strengthened their bullpen. They must think that 5 games can be made up. This will cost, these moves, by the way, look to cost the Indians, a team formerly known as the Indians, about $3.7 million in salaries. And look they probably think they can make up that 5-game difference between the Twins. Maybe they can. I think the Reds made a really nice move in getting Harrison Bader off waivers from the Yankees. He's had a down year offensively. Career lows in on-base percentage, which is atrocious. His OPS is atrocious. He's a really good defensive player. He's been hurt a lot. One of his biggest problems is staying on the field, and maybe one of the biggest problems with his consistency is, staying on the field. But he really helped. He would have really been a help to the Yankees last year in the postseason. And I do think that, he was a big help to the Yankees in the postseason last year. And I think he really helped stabilize this Reds outfield, along with, they also claimed Hunter Renfroe, speaking of the Angels, another Angel. He'll probably play right field. The Reds have used 9 right fielders this year, and they have not played that well as a group. Bader will help either in center field or in left field. They've had a lot of trouble with that spot since injuries have forced them to shuffle that around a little bit. Elsewhere, the Dominic Leone was signed by the Mariners. He was put on waivers by, looks like the Angels again. Angels, by the way, they also put Randall Grichuk on waivers. We know that. He was not claimed. So very interesting way for these teams to go about. You used to be able to see a lot of waiver claims, and we see a lot of waiver deals in September years ago. I remember the Yankees in 78 picked up Dave Kingman in September. He had a big September to help them on the way to the pennant. It was 77 or 78. Might have been 77. But then he was not eligible for the postseason roster because they had got him like on September 5th or something. Yankees had petitioned to get him on there because of some injuries that they had, but nope. Let's see what else we got going here. So anyway, some interesting moves. I think the Reds made some moves that will help solidify their chase in this wild card race, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Some news. Ronald Acuna Jr. becomes Major League's first 30-60 player. Never had one before. 30 home runs, 60 stolen bases. And he also ties the knot. He also got married. So an interesting day for Mr. Ronald Acuna Jr., I think the National League MVP. What else is news this day before we start popping around? In the office, Jim. My God, what is wrong? When you can clearly see somebody's out of the office, and I've got my messenger on, but he can't see that I'm anything but out of the office. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Oh, God. Anyway. Phillies activated left-handed pitcher Ranger Suarez, who was part of their starting staff earlier in the year, and outfielder Christian Posh. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Pachi. They were both added to their expanded 28-man roster. Suarez would be eligible for I think they both would be eligible for the postseason roster, as they both had been on the roster sometime before this year. Pache was hitting 327 with 2 homers and 8 RBIs in 32 games before he was hurt, and Suarez was 2-6 with a 3.88 ERA and 17 starts before he got hurt. Reds get Jake Fraley off the DL. We will not say that. Sorry. We will not say IL here. The littlest political correctness just irritates the crap out of me these days. Anyway, he was reinstated from the 10-day injured list, but they lost to Hunter Green, who they just brought back from the DL. He had to go on the injured list. I just said it, with COVID-19 on Friday. They also recalled Brett Kennedy from AAA Louisville and added newly outfielders, as we said, newly acquired outfielders Harrison Bader and Hunter Redford to the expanded rosters. All of them would be eligible for the postseason. We talked about the Angels and their moves. I think they put more guys on than even the ones that we talked about. So anyway, it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see what the Angels do in the off season. Yankees, besides putting Harrison Bader on the waiver wire and losing him, they finally cut bait with Josh Donaldson. He immediately signed a minor league deal with the Brewers. Now, I'm not sure why they did this. Now, I do think he cleared waivers, so they don't really have to pay him the contract. The Yankees will still pay off his contract. They'll pay him peanuts for the last month. But he's not somebody who, even if he was at top form, can help them now. He's not going to be eligible. I take this back. Hold on. Now it does say by signing Thursday, even though they signed to a minor league contract, Donaldson can be eligible for postseason play with the Brewers and doesn't have to finish the remainder of his stint on a 60-day disabled list. So that probably because he played in the major leagues with the Yankees this year. So maybe, again, who knows? The Brewers need bats, and they're desperate if they think Donaldson's going to be the guy, but more power to him. Walker Buehler set for a minor league rehab outing to prep for his Dodgers return, which is expected to come. We have a date here. Well, sometime this month. Buehler returning as a reliever is not an option. They will only bring him back if he can start. He'll pitch 1 or 2 innings for the team's AAA affiliate in Oklahoma City on Sunday, and he'll make at least 3 rehab starts before rejoining the rotation, making September 18th the earliest he can be here. They still could use him. He's eligible for the playoffs. And he, he could be very helpful. This guy was a great pitcher before he got hurt. And their rotation has been decimated. They just lost Tony Gonsolin this year, Tommy John surgery, as Walker Buehler was well over a year ago. Dustin May to flexor tendon surgery. They're out for the year. Clayton Kershaw and Julio Urias have currently healthy, but they've been hurt at various times through the year. Lance Lynn has provided a boost since he was acquired, but he's ready to implode at any time. He's actually pitched pretty solidly, I think, with the Dodgers. And Bobby Miller, who's been called up in the middle of the season, has pitched fairly well in his rookie season. But Walker Buehler would be somebody who could really give the Dodgers a boost if he's able to stay healthy. Now, you're going to need to have bullpen because he's not pitching, deep into games, I would not think, after only a couple of rehab starts and coming up and being thrown into the middle of a pennant race. Now, not a lot of pressure on them as they finish out September, but get into the playoffs in that type of situation. They said he will not pitch out of the bullpen. So if he makes this postseason roster, it's going to be as a starting pitcher. Good pitcher. The AAA Robot Strike Zone coming to a major league park near you soon, guaranteed. We'll get a slightly bigger. They're going to expand the strike zone on the robot that they're using right now. The season they were programmed to call a 2-dimensional zone based on where the ball crosses the midpoint of the plate. It's 8.5 inches from the front and the back. Major League Baseball is going to reduce. They did reduce the top of the strike zone to 51% of the player's height from 56, and the average batter heights. The system averaged batter heights rather than accounting for each player and their stances. So I guess they're tweaking this thing. There's a lot of people and they're going to make it bigger now. So I think there's a lot of people that seem to like this. I don't know. I'm okay with human error. I've said this before. I don't need instant replay on everything. I don't need it. I've watched the way that it works. It does work pretty quickly. If there's a pitch, the batter just touches his helmet. The umpire sees it. He touches his head, turns around, and in about 5 seconds, you've got a yes or no. But I don't know if you have limited challenges. I just don't like the way this whole thing is heading. There won't be any human element in baseball before long. Oh, God, I just don't know. Why is human error not okay? I've said 100 times on this show, if it wasn't for Don Denkinger blowing an out call at first base in Game 6 of the 1985 World Series, St. Louis and the Royals, if he hadn't blown the third out, the Cardinals would have been champions, and nobody would remember that World Series. Nobody. But we remember it because it was an awful call. Players make mistakes, umpires cannot. Whatever. Oh, boy. The White Sox have promoted Chris Getz to GM. We'll see what his priorities are going to be. I got to believe they're going to continue to clean house there. I told you about the players that I think are safe there in the past, but I think you'll see more and more change as we go forward. Looking for some other stories here. Couple of storylines to watch as we go through September here. The Cubs. Can the Cubs, who are 10 games under 500, continue their surge? I thought they were crazy when they did not make trades at the deadline. The Cubs are currently 9 games over 500, 3 games out of first place in the Central. And where do they stand in a wild card? They currently hold the second wild card in the National League by a game and a half. Maybe I was wrong. Apparently I was. So whether they can continue that, this would be historic. I believe there was no team under 500 as late as the Cubs were. This was June 8th, I believe. Nobody's ever been 10 games under and come back and made the playoff. Actually, I take that back. There were some, now that I see the list. It won't take long to go through this list, though. The 22 Marlins were 10 games under on June 19th. The Mariners, sorry, that's the 2022 Mariners. That was in the wild card era, 95 to 2023. So in those 28 years, one time. Division player, 69 to 94. Another 28-year, no, I can't do math. I'm from Perth. 25-year era. Only 3 teams did it. The 84 Royals. 10 games under on July 19th. Manny Sanguians. I don't know why I say Manny Sanguians. The 1974 Pirates on June 24th. And the Mets. I should have remembered the Mets of 73. They were 10 games under on August 30th and made the playoffs and the World Series. So anyway, it's not been done a lot, and we'll see if that continues. The AL West is going to be a wild September ride. We've already talked about the Mariners, red hot. They're now in first place, a dead flat tie with the Astros. 1 game ahead of the really badly slumping Rangers. Rangers with just a 2.5 game lead in the wild card race over the Blue Jays. So that's going to be a tremendous story. We talked about this with Drew Ehrlich last week, that this would be one of the exciting things to watch, was this pennant race. As far as division races, maybe the Central gets exciting with the team formerly known as the Indians picking up the players they did at the waiver wire. This West race, I still like the Astros. I'm not gotten off my pick of Astros over the Braves in the World Series for a two-peat. Back to back. And the race in the National League. I guess the Central Division in the National League, which I've said would not be a race. The Cubs continue to surge. And then you've got the wild card race, which will continue to do that. CA, how are you, buddy? First chance you had to check in. Good to have you with us today. CA joins us in almost all our shows, and it's greatly appreciated. His input is greatly appreciated. I appreciate him putting together the fantasy football league that we are doing on TGI Sports Talk this year. And CA, get in and join the survivor pool that I set up. I'll be posting it in the comments on Sunday. But it is on TGI Sports Talk right now. Myself and Alan were the only ones in there the last I looked. But something simple, king of the hill, bragging rights. But that's the NFL. Cubbies clubbing the Reds again so far. Today we got a good point. What do we got going on here today? Probably I need to refresh this so I can see the score. Live. That's funny. How come I don't see the score here? I'm not on the scoreboard. That's why. So the Cubbies are clubbing the Reds again. It'll be an interesting race for that Central Division, which is still in play. And obviously the wild card races that we've talked about a couple of times. You've got the Cubs and the Phillies and the Giants currently in. And these teams seem to kind of juggle who's in that second and third spot, it seems, weekly. The Diamondbacks just a game back. The Reds just a game and a half back. The Marlins still only 3 games back despite going on a really bad streak recently. I think we can finally count the Padres out at 8.5 back. And I think it's a 3-team or even a 3-team race really in the American League. It'll be the 2 losers in the American League West and the Blue Jays. I'd say the Rays are in at 6.5 plus 6.5. Let's see how that goes. What do you got? CA. Huge series for both teams for wild card chance. Absolutely. There's some good series. We'll get into some of the series that are being played this weekend before we sign off today. We talked about the Braves and Dodgers. While not huge playoff implications as far as getting there, an interesting preview of what we might see for supremacy of the National League at some point. I still think the Braves are the best team in the National League, and we're going to find out whether that's true or not. Last night it was. The Braves. $253 home runs. They lead the Dodgers by 41. Only one team in the last 50 years has led the majors in home runs by 40 or more. That was Jose Bautista and my ever-loving bat flip. The 2010 Blue Jays were plus 46. No NL team has done it since Henry Aaron's 73 Braves, plus 45. You remember they had 3 guys hit 40 home runs or more. Davey Johnson had a career year with 40 home runs that year. Darrell Evans, Henry Aaron on it, really narrowing in on the chase for the chase for Babe Ruth's record. Didn't quite get there before the season was out. He broke it early the next season. And Henry Aaron's last great season. So that doesn't happen very often. They do also employ the leader in home runs, but all their other masters have had so many home runs. Trots, they would nearly top the major leagues in home runs, even if the home run leader had 0. So if you took Matt Olson, the National League leader, out of the lineup and didn't replace his home runs, they'd still be leading. Pretty interesting. We talked about Ronald Acuna being the first to reach 60 steals and 30 home runs in the same season. There's another 30 for a 60 and 30 club. Freddie Freeman is let's see, Freddie Freeman is September away from joining it. It would be the 60 double, 30 home run club. If you're having trouble remembering all the names, there's good reason. Why that is. There are none. Tremendous record. Freddie Freeman's one of the most underrated players in baseball. I said 2 years ago when Freddie Freeman and the Braves stupidly let him go, he was the glue to that team, leader of that team. When it was clear he wasn't going to return to the Braves, how the Yankees were not all in on Freddie Freeman, I have no idea. Anthony Rizzo is a great player, a great leader, but he's not Freddie Freeman. He never was. He's certainly never going to be again. The injuries and who knows, the concussions, could really hurt his career. By the way, the player with the most 60 double seasons, how do I want to say this? The player with 60 doubles or more with the most home runs in history is Hank Greenberg, great Detroit Tiger, had 63 doubles and 26 home runs. Most doubles by a 30 home run man. Much closer. Chuck Klein and Todd Helton, former Rocky, both made it to 59 doubles with 30-plus home runs. They had 40 and 42 home runs, respectively. Freeman's already keeping company as the only players in history to reach 50 doubles and 25 home runs. So he's on a roll and on a pace to set that record. That will be fun to watch. See what else is kind of newsworthy here. By the way, it wasn't long ago, and I don't know whether Freddie Freeman could be in the Triple Crown race. I'm not sure where he stands. I think home runs, he's going to be way behind Olsen. He could win a batting title. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about whether Luis Arraza could hit 400. He's dropped to 349, and Freeman's at 338. He's going to chase down. He's going to potentially chase down Arraza for the batting title. He was leading Freeman by 85 points as late as June 24th. So I'm reading some quotes here. How nutty would it be for a man not to even lead his league in hitting when he was hitting 400 as late in the season as Arraza was? Ted Williams, it's 82 seasons, by the way, 82 years since Ted Williams hit 406 in 1941. Since then, only two men have been at 400 on June 24th or later and not won a batting title. There's only been a couple guys been at 400 at that point or later anyway. Larry Walker was in 1997, was at 400 in mid-July, did not win the batting title because the other guy he was in a race with was a guy named Tony Gwynn. Gwynn hit 372. Walker finished at 366. Certainly no shame in that, right? Tommy Holmes kept his average over 400 for the Braves in 1945 through July 18th, and he went up sliding to 352, ended up 3 points behind Cubs Phil Cavarretta. And one more thing, in the 82 seasons since Ted, you know how many qualifying hitters had an average of 400 or higher on June 24 or later and did not finish that season hitting at least 350? The answer is nobody. Holmes was the lowest. Only Holmes dropped below 360. So this is quite a drop for Arraza. And remember, the value he brings to this team is batting average and getting on base. He doesn't hit for a lot of power. He doesn't hit for a lot of extra bases at all. So that'll be interesting. I'm trying to read a couple other things here that might be interesting. Otani goes into September needing only 6 home runs and 2 triples to knock on the door of the 50-10 club. 50 homers, 10 triples. And who will you find hanging at the bar stools of that club? Pretty good group of guys. Babe Ruth, 59 home runs, 16 triples in 1921, and 51 homers and 13 triples in 1955 by one Willie Mays. Pretty good stuff. I don't know what that's about there. Oh, Mookie Wilson goes 5, or Mookie Wilson. Where did I get that from? Mookie Betts goes 5 for 5 this week. Talk about weird stats. But he's 2 for 2. This was in a suspended game. He went 2 for 2 before a 500 million raindrops fell and interrupted the fun. And then he goes 3 for 3 the next day after the game gets interrupted. History recording have had a 5-hit game, on Wednesday the 23rd, except that 3 of those hits actually came on the 24th. Interesting numbers. I love reading some of these weird stats, right? Maybe you guys don't, but I do. I think I'm done with that. Let's go back to the stats. Let's go back to the standings. Let's do a review of that. Let's look at these big races this weekend. The American League East, where are we? The Orioles, we're pretty much where we've been for a while. The Orioles with a 1.5 game lead over the Rays. Rays could still win this division with all those distractions. We talked about Wander Franco. We don't know if he'll ever play Major League Baseball again. And that's the race. We talked about great races. This could be a great race. But these teams are both going to make the playoffs no matter what. The Orioles have a 99.9% chance. The Rays have a 99.8% chance. The Blue Jays have fallen to 43.8 as they're 2.5 games behind the Rangers, as we said, for that final wild card spot. The Red Sox have gone 3-7 in their last 10, lost 4 in a row, and they pretty much ended, I think, their thoughts of making a wild card. They're 6.5 games back now, and I think that's close to. Is this an O's Diamondback series this weekend? Is that what you're pointing out to me, CA? Let's see. That would be an interesting. It is. That's an interesting matchup this weekend. Cole Irvin and Zach Davies started off. Listen, we'll get to it in a second, but the Diamondbacks have done a good job of getting themselves back in this race after really, really going through a horrendous stretch right after, I guess, just before and right after the All-Star break. The Yankees, as we know, are at risk of losing a 30 consecutive season streak of finishing over 500. Pretty good chance that happens. They do have a 0.1% chance of making the ball. The kids are up today. Jason Dominguez, some of the other kids will be up to play significant roles in September as Hal Steinbrenner decides the way he wants to go. Lots of reports out of New York that Steinbrenner is going to really look at the analytics department and find out what's going wrong. I know what's going wrong. Any organization that is depending on trying to make everybody the same ball player and relying on exit velocity and launch angles to teach kids how to hit is crazy. Absolutely crazy. They teach nothing. Excuse me. They do nothing to help kids instill baseball instincts into kids. Now, granted, some people either have them or they don't. But if you drill guys the right way, then instincts will come into play. And we don't worry about game situations. We treat every at-bat the same. I'm not going down the street today. In the Central, we said the Twins with a 5-game lead over the Guardians. The Guardians 6 games under 500 currently. Just a 5.7% chance of making the playoffs. The Twins are at 94. But they make these moves to bring in Giolito, to bring in Lopez, and more to strengthen the bullpen. They think they can close this gap, and it's not going to cost them that much to do it. The Tigers, who fooled themselves way too long, didn't make enough moves, I don't think, at the trade deadline for some kids and whatnot. They're fighting to try to maybe finish 500, but that's going to be a giant task. 21-7 to even do that. White Sox, maybe the biggest disappointment in baseball this year, along with the Mets. trudging along now. Believe me, they still get a zero. They get the same chance of making the playoffs as the Yankees, believe it or not. 18 games under 500. So this division continues just to be a bore. Kansas City and has lost 6 in a row as they still try to battle the A's for the worst team in baseball accolades. Out west, we've talked about it a little bit. The Mariners, the Astros, the Rangers, the Astros CA's team, I still like. This is a battle-tested team, man, and they have struggled. Nothing's come easy for this team this year. They didn't hit for the longest time. They had a ton of injuries. They had some key pitchers among those injuries. A lot of their key players not hitting. And the Astros have hung in there. They've won 5 in a row now. They're in a flat-footed tie with the Mariners for first, and the Rangers have fallen to a game back. 86% chance of making the playoffs for the Mariners, 94 for the Astros, 70 only for the Rangers. And the Angels, we all know what's happened to them. And they tried to I think they put their entire team on waivers this past week. And I've got to tell you, I like the Astros. So as we look at this, I mean, I really like the Orioles to hang on and win the East. I still like the Twins. I said the Astros and Mariners would finish first and second. I think I'm correct still, and I think the Astros will be the team in first. And then it's going to be a matter whether the Angels or the Rangers. I did not have the Rangers in the playoffs. It's going to be a matter whether the Rangers or the Blue Jays make the playoffs, most likely. And again, Seattle could fall back. The Astros could fall back and be in that race. But that's what I foresee. You got a race for the top in the East, a race for the top in the West, and a race amongst Texas, the loser of Texas, Seattle, the Rangers, and the Blue Jays for the last wild card spot. Or I should say the last 2 wild card spots. And then the rest are just playing out the string, obviously. Sadly. In the National League, the Braves still running wild. 88 wins, best record in baseball, best team. Best overall team in Major League Baseball. When you factor in starting pitching, relief pitching, base running, fielding, they do it all. They don't rely on analytics. They got a manager who I believe knows game situations. They've got players who game situations is kind of banged into them, and they know how to take advantage of certain game situations where maybe other teams are not, and they don't adjust their approach accordingly. I think the Braves do. I think the Astros do. I think the Rays do. I think the Orioles do. I think there are more teams starting to do it. And I need to see this trend continue. I know analytics aren't going away, but they need to be used differently. Numbers only tell you so much. Probabilities only tell you so much. To me, again, there's no more stupid statistic in all of sports than WAR. You're telling me wins above replacement is not all conjecture? It is. And the only thing I need to prove it to me is the fact that you look at different sources, they calculate it differently. So stop telling me about WAR. Let me just watch the games and let the eye test tell me who the good players are and who the good players aren't. It's not hard to figure out. WAR doesn't tell me the guys, and neither do the traditional counting stats, by the way, tell me how a guy did in clutch situations. You can hit 50 home runs, and if you hit 45 of them when you're up by 7 runs, who cares? Sorry, as we know, we get off to these little side trips. What do you got? Reds lose this series. They could be swept from Seattle. They could get swept from Seattle. Could be. Could be. So anyway, the National League. We talked about the Braves. The Phillies, again, they're on a good streak. 99% chance of making it for the Braves. The Phillies, who lead the wild card race now by 3 games over the Cubs. 96% chance to make it. The Marlins down to 11.9. They are just a couple games out of the wild card race. Back to 500. Not playing good baseball, though. We talked about Luis Arraza, maybe their best player, offensively anyway, and he has really gone in the tank here recently. The Nationals and the Mets pull up the rear. The Mets officially in last place with the Yankees. Doesn't happen often, guys. It's only happened a handful of times since the Mets came into existence in 1962. The Central, the Brewers not playing bad baseball, 8-2. They have lost their last 2 in a row. They're 96% chance of making the playoffs. But the Cubs keep inching closer. 3 games back now. The Reds are 6 games back in the division. Closer, as I said, in the wild card. Game and a half out, I believe. We'll look at that in a second. 14% chance of making the playoffs for the Reds. The Pirates, as I said all along, remember who they are. They're the Pirates, and they fall backwards. The Cardinals finishing off just an atrocious year for them. Big changes coming for the Cardinals, I think, this year. It's going to be interesting to see if Marmol survives this. I don't think it was his issue. He's a good manager. He showed last year he was a good manager. I don't think this year was necessarily his fault. It was not a team well put together by Cardinal standards. Braves aren't only worried about the Phillies. The Braves are only worried about the Phillies or Dodgers. I don't know if I'd worry about the Phillies, although historically the Phillies have given the Braves a hard time. I'd worry about the Brewers only because of the pitching. In a short series, pitching can take over. And if the Brewers' pitching is healthy, they could give somebody some trouble. And the Dodgers, listen, I've said forever, the Dodgers and Dave Roberts have done a great job this year. If Dave Roberts is not the manager of the year in baseball, then stop giving the award away. What he's done with the injuries he's dealt with from spring training on, I mean, after losing the free agents they lost the last couple of years, Corey Seager last year, Trey Turner, who's playing really well for the Phillies again, suddenly, by the way. But to lose some of these guys in free agency and have the injuries, Gavin Lux goes out, going to be the opening day shortstop. He goes out. The entire pitching staff, the entire starting staff has been on the DL at some point this year for long stretches. Yet this team just keeps plugging guys in and winning. The Giants and Gabe Kapler have started to struggle recently. They are in the playoffs if they started today, which they do not. And the Diamondbacks have battled back to 4 games over. They've lost 3 in a row. They've gotten as high as 7 games over 500. Still in the playoffs as we speak today. And then there's the Padres. Finally they're not 4 games under 500 every time I look. They get worse. They're 9 games under now. And the Rockies are the Rockies. Just not good baseball. Rockies forever are never going to be a good team. Never. Ugh. Is there any other news before I go into the weekend games? Let's do the weekend games right now. Let's take a look at these series and the ones that really matter. You got the Cubs and Cincinnati's we talked about playing all weekend. The score there today, CA was talking about it earlier. Come I don't have it. What's the date today? The 1st. There we go. Cubs 6-1 right now. Bottom of the 9th. The Reds are not going to win this one. So they're going to fall back even further in this wild card race. Other matchups this weekend. Oh, they got a doubleheader today, by the way. So they're playing a 5-game series this weekend, I would say. 5-game series. Or are they moving on somewhere else? Let's see, make sure that they can't be moving someplace else on a Saturday. Yeah, no, they're playing them all weekend. So anyway, we got, I don't know who's starting that second game. We had Wicks and Ashcroft start the first game. Miami at Washington. Yuri Perez, a really good rookie pitcher for the Marlins, will pitch against Jake Irvin. Miami needs to get in here and get healthy. They need to win 2 out of 3, maybe sweep. Seattle will be playing the Mets in New York. Logan Gilbert. What a really good staff this Mariners team has put together. All young starters. Logan Gilbert being one of them. And he'll pitch against Senga tonight, the one bright spot maybe for the Mets this season. Tampa Bay will play Cleveland at Cleveland. Cleveland, again, making these interesting waiver moves when you would think they really don't have much to play for at 6 games under 500. They seem to think they can cut into this lead that the Twins have. The Twins are going to be in Texas. So you've got Tampa Bay at Cleveland. It'll be Tyler Glasnow against Cal Quantrill. Montreal will be at Texas. Texas trying to right the ship. Things have not gone well. Max Scherzer hasn't pitched horribly. He'll start tonight against Joe Ryan, who's had some really good outings and some really bad outings for the Twins this year. Boston and Kansas City, I don't think anybody cares. James Paxton against Jordan Lyles. Detroit and the White Sox, this would probably be the series that you'd have to pay me to go watch. Eduardo Rodriguez, who refused to trade famously to the Dodgers, could be really building up his brand and reputation and potentially winning a World Series on his way to free agency. Nah, but I'll stay in Detroit. New York and Houston. Can the Yankees play spoilers? Carlos Rendon, my favorite Yankee. Oh, my God. What a waste of $162 million. Against Justin Verlander. This is a mismatch on paper. I just hope the Yankees can put up some fight. Play the kids, put up some fight. Philadelphia and Milwaukee. Pretty important series for both of them. Zach Wheeler and Freddie Peralta. Milwaukee again. Trying to stave off the Cubbies. Pittsburgh at St. Louis. I guess there's another series you'd have to pay me to go see. These could be the Cardinals and Pittsburgh, and what was the other series I talked about? Detroit and Chicago. This is the great Pete Axelm used to call them the broken windshield special. That's where you have 2 tickets to the game. You leave them on your dashboard in your car, lock the car door, and leave without them and realize you got to go back and get the tickets. And when you get back, your windshield's smashed, and instead of 2 tickets, you have 4. If you don't get the joke, I'll explain to you later. Toronto at Colorado. Listen, this is an important series for Toronto to get. These are the types of games you've got to go in and win 2 out of 3. Win these series at a minimum. And if you're the Blue Jays and you want to catch the Rangers, I'd be sweeping these games. Angels at Oakland. I guess another broken windshield special this series. Oh, by the way, you got Jinru against Flexen in that Toronto-Colorado game. The Angels and A's, you've got Patrick Sandoval against J.P. Sears, former Yankee. Baltimore and Arizona. CA brought this up earlier. Arizona playing better baseball till the last few days. Got themselves back into the wild card hunt. In fact, they're in the wild card as we speak today. Baltimore trying to hold off the Rays in the East. Both those teams are going to make the playoffs. This will be an interesting series. Cole Irvin and Zach Davies tonight. San Francisco at San Diego. What a waste San Diego is, right? Kristen Beck against Michael Wacha. Atlanta at Los Angeles continues. This will be an interesting series to watch as these teams try to, gain some momentum over the other one, assuming they will see each other at some point in the postseason. I would say if they matched up, it would be most likely in the NLCS. So you got Max Fried against Julio Urias. So some interesting series to take a look at here as we start September. And we're really in the stretch run now. Go, 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 go. As a Yankee fan, this is where I get to turn off my fandom and just watch and enjoy a flip around looking for good games. By the way, speaking of good games, So I moved 2 months ago now. 2 months ago? How long have I been here? June 30th, July? Yeah, 2 months. Went back to Spectrum streaming. I had DirecTV. And DirecTV had a battle with Fox for, I believe it's gone on for nearly a year. So we had no Fox on DirecTV. I had to get it through a digital antenna, which I could, there's no problem. Well, I turned on Spectrum this morning, and Spectrum is no longer carrying any of the Disney/ABC channels. So no ABC, no ESPN, no ESPN2, no SEC network. College football starts this weekend, guys. What are you doing? Now, I do have some other avenues. I have the ESPN Plus app, which gets me almost every college game, but ABC's marquee game, I'm probably not getting. Man, I'm ticked off if you can't tell. This better last about a week, or I'm probably going to have to trial Sling or something this weekend so I can get all the games. I'm just getting myself set up. I know this isn't Major League Baseball. I'm just getting myself set up so I can live like I used to live. Our deck is done. Our beautiful new deck is done. The new fire pit is put together, ready to be used. And what do I have? Little college football. BS, man. Anyway, sorry. It's not Major League Baseball related. I don't understand that. I got nothing else, though, I guess. There's an interesting article in ESPN Plus, actually, about the Angels' late season salary dump. And this is this going to be the new model where teams look to dump veterans at the waiver deadline? It'll be interesting to see if they do that. They also have an article about the teams that since the trade deadline, if they had to do over, would they do more or less? And maybe we'll get to. I'll go through this real quickly. The Angels, they would have done less without a doubt. The Padres, they probably would not have done anything different. The Diamondbacks, I think they probably should have made a few more moves than they made. They did get Tommy Pham, Jace Peterson, Paul Sewell. They might have looked for another veteran bat. The Braves, I'm sure, wouldn't have done nothing else. The Cubs, I think they probably did exactly what they needed to do. They knew what they had, liked what they had, or even though guys like me didn't. Smart move. White Sox, no chance. I'm not going through all this. Be an interesting thing to look at maybe once we get through the end of the season entirely. But we're going to wrap it up here, guys. We got some good baseball this weekend. We got some great college football coming up on a different note. And we'll be live Sunday morning at 8:30 with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. I know CA will be there. We'll talk about all the Major League Baseball results from these big series that we've talked about here. We'll also talk college football and the NFL. A lot of big news in the NFL with cut down week here. We'll make some. We'll give you our predictions, which we did on Are You Serious this morning. Check that out. Get mine in the New Yorker, Bad New Yorker season prediction. And we'll catch you there. We'll see you then, 8:30 Sunday. For now, everybody, I will say goodbye. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk. MLB update right here on Northeastern Sports, Talk Sports, and any place else you can get it. Dan Harris, stay strong, my friend. Bye-bye.